Want to see more cool videos on our channel? We do, so press this bell and enable to send notifications.
There is just something about an unsolved mystery, isn't there? Sure, it's great when you eventually find out why something happened the way it did, but man, the idea of an event taking place without an immediate, plausible explanation just sends those debating skills into overdrive and makes the conspiracy theories pile up. Below are just some examples of mysteries that will probably be debated for a long time to come. Number 7. The mummy that wasn't. A mummified 2,600-year-old princess that became the subject of a frenzied tussle for ownership between Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan last year is believed to be the body of a murdered 21-year-old woman, according to archaeologists. The mummy was found by police during a raid of a Baluchistan chieftain home in Karahan, Pakistan, and was to be sold on the black market for millions. On the mummy's head was an exquisite gold crown embossed with 7 cypress trees, the emblems of the ancient Persian capital of Hamadan. Gold ornaments in the coffin also suggested that the mummified body was of royal blood. However, not everyone was convinced that the mummy was the real deal. Professor Ahmad Dani, director of the Institute of Asian Civilizations in Islamabad, claimed to have known from the beginning that the mummy was not all it was cracked up to be. He was not wrong. The inscription on her chest read, "I am the king of this land," in ancient hieroglyphics, yet she was a woman. Professor Dani said that the wooden coffin was not as old as her body, and while the gold crown on her head looked genuine, her mask was relatively modern, perhaps 100 years old. Most revealing was the mat on which the body was resting. He said, "I would guess that the mat was 5 years old." Finally, it was confirmed with the help of radiocarbon testing that the woman had died in 1996. The mummy was finally buried in 2005 without the woman ever being identified. Number 6. Dutch students' deaths. On April 1st, 2014, Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon left their host family's home to take the family's dog on a walk through the scenic forests around the Baru volcano in Boquete, Panama. They posted on Facebook that they were going to walk around Boquete before tackling the hiking trail. On the night of April 1st, the host family noticed something was wrong. Their dog had returned, safe and sound, but alone. The girls were nowhere to be found. The host family searched the area around their home, but decided to wait until morning to alert the authorities. Chris and Lizanne's parents arrived in Panama 5 days later and waited anxiously for the news of their children as police and detectives scoured the forest for 10 days. Days turned into weeks, and after 10 weeks, there had still not been any sign of Kremers or Froon. Then, as police were slowing their search efforts, a local woman turned in a blue backpack, claiming to have found it in a rice paddy along the banks of the river. Inside the backpack were 2 pairs of sunglasses, $83 in cash, Froon's passport, a water bottle, and 2 bras. Police also found a camera and both girls' cell phones in the backpack. When they scrolled through the phones, they found that there had been 77 attempts to call the police and emergency services in both Panama as well as the Netherlands. Due to lack of signal in the area, these calls did not go through. On one of the phones, they found several photos of the trail and surrounding forest. Between 1 and 4 a.m. on April 8th, the photos showed the girls' belongings spread out on the rocks, plastic bags and candy wrappers, oddly piled mounds of dirt, a mirror, and, most worrisome, the back of Kremers' head with blood leaking from her temple. 2 months later, bones were found in the forest. DNA tests confirmed that the bones belonged to the 2 missing girls. Later, in 2014, they were publicly declared dead of a hiking accident. Police never found out how they died or if someone was responsible for their deaths. Number 5. Leatherman. This incredible story begins around the time of the American Civil War. It was a time when many were desperate for work, not to mention simply a hot meal and a place to sleep for the night. One such man became a local legend. Roaming vagabonds were nothing new at all in the 1880s, but this curious character became a local mainstay. The people knew almost nothing about him, other than the fact that he would regularly walk a long, winding route over the course of about 34 days. He often asked for food as he passed by a farmhouse, and the occupants were amazed at his appetite. Along his route, he slept in a series of caves and cobbled together structures, where he would store foods and such. These became known as Leatherman Caves. The press began following Leatherman's movements and chronicled his travels for over 30 years. In modern times, the research into this mysterious man continues. Pearl Jam got caught up in the mystery and wrote a song about him. Leatherman's real name and age at the time remains unknown, as does his place of birth and where he grew up. Number 4. Bloodstained Nina Craigmiles Crypt. Nina Craigmiles was born to Mira Adelia Thompson Craigmiles and John Henderson Craigmiles on August 5, 1864. As she grew, Nina learned to love riding on a horse-drawn buggy. During one such outing, her grandfather on St. Luke's Day in 1871, the buggy they were riding in was hit full-on by an oncoming train as they were crossing the railroad tracks. 7-year-old Nina was killed on impact. While her family grieved, Nina's father changed his will to include a clause that stated he wished to be buried inside the mausoleum where Nina's ashes rested. John Craigmiles also ensured that an Episcopal church was built in Nina's memory, which included the marble mausoleum in the churchyard to keep Nina's ashes in. The church was named St. Luke's Memorial Episcopal Church and was consecrated in 1872. John died in 1899 and was buried as requested, inside Nina's mausoleum. Sometime later, red stains started appearing on the outside of the mausoleum. Efforts to clean the stains failed, and when the marble blocks were replaced, the stains simply reappeared. In modern times, sightings have been reported of a little ghost girl in 1800s clothing playing outside the mausoleum. The red stains, whom many believe to be blood, are still visible on Craigmiles Mausoleum in Cleveland, and tourists love relating the story. However, the cause of the stains remains a mystery. Number 3. Kathy Hobbs' Premonition. When Catherine Marie Hobbs was 8 years old, her parents divorced. As if this wasn't bad enough for the young girl, her best friend died while they were both in middle school. Soon after, Catherine, or Kathy as her family called her, started having disturbing premonitions that she would not live past 16 years of age. Kathy and her sister Teresa moved to a Las Vegas suburb with their mother, where Kathy made new friends, and eventually woke up on her 16th birthday on 20 April 1987, feeling greatly relieved that nothing terrible had happened to her. As the days passed after her birthday, Kathy grew confident that her premonitions were nothing more than a figment of her imagination. On July 23, 1987, Kathy left her house to buy a novel at the local supermarket a block and a half away. Her mom kissed her goodbye in case she fell asleep before Kathy returned. The next morning, Kathy's mom knocked on her bedroom door, only to discover it was empty. Kathy never made it back home. Her mother filed a missing persons report immediately. 9 days later, a hiker found Kathy's body near Lake Mead. When police were called, they discovered rocks at the murder scene with Kathy's blood on it, indicating that the teenager had been hit in the head repeatedly. The news devastated Kathy's mother and sister. Later, while cleaning out her bedroom, they found letters written by Kathy to each family member. The letters were dated a month before Kathy's 16th birthday. In them, she wrote that she loved them dearly and that they shouldn't be upset or dwell over her death. Kathy Hobbs' murder remains unsolved, even though a serial killer by the name of Michael Lee Lockhart was a prime suspect and eventually executed for another murder. Number 2. Titanic poisoning. On the last day of filming the movie Titanic in Nova Scotia, James Cameron suddenly felt inexplicably ill and disoriented. When he started vomiting, he realized something was very wrong. Once he got back to the set, he found he wasn't the only one feeling strange, as some of the cast and crew were vomiting or crying, and some even laughing. At Dartmouth General Hospital, things took an even weirder turn when a crew member stabbed Cameron in the face with a pen, while others started stealing unoccupied wheelchairs and wheeling themselves up and down the hospital corridors. Cameron, who was bleeding from the pen stab wound, couldn't stop laughing. Once the hospital staff ruled out food poisoning, they realized that chowder consumed by more than 60 people on set had been laced with PCP. Theories abounded, one of which had it that a dismissed crew member tried to take revenge by poisoning the food. Officially, the mystery remains long after the case was closed in 1999 due to a lack of suspects. Number 1. Miniature coffins. In 1836, a group of boys set off for Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, Scotland to hunt rabbits. Intrigued by a concealed cave, the boys decided to peek inside. After pulling away the stones covering the entrance, they stumbled upon 17 miniature coffins, each with a wooden doll inside. The dolls had big eyes and were dressed in cotton clothing. When the discovery was reported in the Scotsman newspaper, the article mentioned that the coffins were decorated with funeral trappings, and it seemed that they had been placed inside the cave recently. As is always the case with unexplained discoveries, multiple theories were presented to try and explain the coffins. Some people thought it might be children playing a trick, while others mused that witches might have used the coffins for rituals. Yet another theory said that the coffins may have been part of an ancient custom to give sailors who died at sea a Christian burial. A dark theory suggested that the coffins may have been set up in tribute to killers of William Burke and William Hare, who murdered 17 people. The true purpose of the coffins and who placed them in the cave remains a mystery. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch up my next video.